Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're continuing our series where we are ranking every single Omicron in the game. So, we already did Galactic Legends. I will link that down below, and this is in a playlist as well, so we'll make sure, you can go check that out. I don't know how often we'll be updating this, but it will be something that we can kind of continue to work on. Again, this video series, we're approaching Omicrons from the perspective that if I took all your Omicrons away and I gave you, say, half of them back, just for the sake of argument, what would be your order for equipping them? That's how this video series is getting approached, because I think sometimes we have a tendency to overrate certain Omicrons or not look at them in the proper light. Not everything can be S tier. There are levels, and I tried my best to make sure that I put things in the level that I feel they belong in based on how good the Omicron is. So with that said, please like and subscribe, comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. Thank you again to my channel members for all their just continued love and support. This channel would not be what it is without them. I am, continually just humbled, blessed, and honored to be able to bring you Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes content. So thank you guys again. Let's get in here and let's talk about some Omicrons on Legendary and Conquest units. Alright, so we're going to flip over to the screen capture here, and we're going to move the fat face over to the right hand side just because it's going to be easier, because we're going to have text over here. Every time I try to point, man, I just get freaking confused. Over here, there will be text. So I have detailed descriptions of the tiers. Again, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you guys will kind of get the idea of what the difference between each one is. The one we won't be listing here is mediocre, toon, good, early. There's no characters, there's no Omicrons, in my opinion, on a Legendary or Conquest unit that fits this description. So, the first tier we've got is the Ketchum tier, and again, I'm not going to try to describe every single Omicron in detail, just kind of show you why I think they belong where they do. So we've got Trip 0, BT1. They should be pretty obvious. These are just not highly touted Omicrons. They're on characters that, listen, Dr. Aphra's good, but these don't really help the team's performance in any significant way in 3v3. Aphra does just fine in 3s without these Omicrons. They're really just not necessary. Honestly, I think they make the team, I don't even think they make the team worse. They make them better, but it's not worth it. And similarly, I've got Jacosta's basic here. Again, I just don't think it's valuable enough to be equipping. It doesn't do anything crazy, in my opinion. Not that I would, on her turn, grant each Jedi Vanguard ally every dispellable buff she has for one turn. Grandmaster Yoda does that with his, basic, or with his one special. Now, it's not every turn, but I don't think that's worth an Omicron, in my opinion, because what if she doesn't have any dispellable buffs? Then you're not granting anything. So I think if this was giving out buffs, like, hey, if she doesn't have any buffs, then this happens. But because it's just, I just don't think it's worth it. That's just my personal opinion. It's an Ketchum tier for me. Other ones are better. Next, we have Luthen Rail, his basic. Again, this tier of great toon, not needed, right? Good character, not needed. The idea behind this is saying, listen, there's maybe a situation out there that you could conjure up where these Omicrons would be beneficial, where you can come up with a very specific situation. But overall, you can't think of it off the top of your head, or you've got to get so down into the weeds that, like, okay, we're getting a little bit too far, Phil. Comparative to ones where it's like, okay, in this situation, situational, just to kind of maybe explain this difference between here and here. These kind of Omicrons is a lot more general. Hey, think about Bane with his first special that does the buff dispel and gives additional ultimate charge for linked and deceived. Okay, well, that's situational use, because when you're using him with Sith Eternal, that's a better Omicron compared to, like, you just don't need it, right? So here we've got Luthen's basic. We have Balin's unique ability. We have Bo-Katan's special, Reva's special, Jar Jar's unique, Aphra's unique, and Malgus special. All of these are, listen, they're good characters. There's some Omicrons that can make a difference. It just, I'm Some of these I have, some of these I don't, and I can tell you that my teams perform just fine without them. I think every one of these you could make a legitimate case for them being good, but I think you could also make a legitimate case that they're just not necessary for the team's designed purpose, right? So I think there's far better Omicrons on every single one of these characters, and if I could maybe take some of these back, I potentially would in certain situations. So I think these are, hey, listen, you don't really need them. If you want them, go for it, but not completely necessary, in my opinion, for what you're, again, I'm just trying to scroll through them so you guys can kind of see them again. And I will have this linked in the description. Just not good enough. Next, we have the One Trick Pony, and I've got Mission's Guardian for Zalbar here. Now, this is only when looking at it from the 3v3 angle, which might be a bit harsh, but in 3v3, Mission's going to die, and then, all the ridiculous stuff happens. Listen, offensively, this could be very good, but defensively, it's a one-trick pony. Hey, Mission died, I sent in my Ewok Scout, and Mission died, Darth Revan took a turn, I basically wasted that team on my Ewok Scout. Now I dropped 20 banners, but when you think about Grand Arena, some of the larger strategy at times is making sure that your opponent can't clear you at all, and this is one of those teams where maybe that's not really working. So it's a one-trick pony at best. Yes, there is the focus Datacron Mission had where she was reviving, but again, I think overall, you're not relying on a Datacron for this kind of Omicron. I know a lot of people who really like this, and I'm not saying that it can't be of some value, but it's a one-trick pony. We've got to put it where I feel it belongs, and that's kind of where I think it fits best. Next is our cause for concern tier. These are where we're starting to get some of those, okay, this is a pretty good Omicron. I've got Afra's Special. The biggest reason I like this one is you're dealing damage equal to 50% of her potency. She's siphoning potency, so she's gaining a lot of potency. As that fight goes on and she's using this ability, some crazy things start to happen. Afra gets a lot better. Next, we have What Do I Sacrifice by Luthen. You can give out critical damage up, which is always a great buff to have. But the biggest part of this here is Mon Mothma and all other Rebel Fighter allies gain 30% offense and are immune to turn meter reduction until the end of their next turn. Target Rebel Fighter ally ignores taunt until the end of their next turn. That to me is a crucial kind of ability there, that even though it's a one-turn taunt ignore, the damage that can be inflicted with 30% additional offense is crazy, right? That's a Kyle Katarn saber throw to Grand Inquisitor's face or something. It's not fun. So I do really like this. I think that does cause you some concern because somebody could get sniped out on your team. Next, we've got Jacosta's ability where she can set the target's max health to 65. Listen, this can absolutely be a concern. If this lines up the right way, she can start deleting people on your team. It's not one where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to beat that, but it is something that you're like, yeah, let's avoid. Similar situation with Saw Gerrera. Look, it's a good Omicron with the right team. It can be very good with the right Datacron. It can be great with Luthen Rail. It's amazing. But just on its own, it's going to cause you some concern. You're going to have to think through how to beat this team a little bit. Similar situation with Reva's. This is her unique ability. Whenever she's revived from hatred, the cooldown of Unyielding Onslaught is refreshed and she gains 100% offense until her next attack and ignores taunt effects for one turn. Again, very good ability. The ignore taunt is nice. The 100% offense is nice. So I like this a lot because I do think it does kind of give her some measure of scariness of when she gets like defeated and comes back. But overall, it's not like you're like, I don't know how to beat this because of that. It causes some concern. You're going to have to think about it a little bit more clearly, but not to any crazy levels. Jedi Temple Guard, Patience is a Virtue. The biggest thing here is you're giving your team 100% defense, offense, and potency if all allies are Jedi Vanguard, which that's friggin' awesome, right? That is really good. The big thing, Galactic Republic Jedi, again, the big thing with this that I like is there's levels of how ridiculous that is, but obviously you can't be allied with Galactic Legends, which is never, so like, okay, can't use this with like Kenobi. And the other thing is the Jedi Vanguards, I've not been crazily impressed by them, so I'm kind of noting this down and saying, yeah, it causes some concern. It does make that team better, but it's not like they're sniping out anything ridiculous. My places with my people on Queen Amidala, the leadership. Again, this causes concern. It's not the meat. It's not the bulk of her best kit, in my opinion. It definitely can make things a lot more challenging for you, but it doesn't raise the team to the level that it gets with her other abilities, in my opinion. So that's the cause for concern page. Again, you're like, all right, these definitely increase the threat level, but they're not doing anything that I'm not prepared to counter, or it's not the biggest part of their team. Next, we have Great Toon's situational use. This is where in some situations they're amazingly important, and in other ones you're not going to notice it. So the big one here, starting out with Dr. Aphra. So with Dr. Aphra, her leadership ability, I kind of have it here because in some fights she just has a ceiling. She has a ceiling that the Omicron just won't make a difference in. And the other side to this too is Aphra's really dependent on certain datacrons happening, so it's kind of why I've got it here. Similarly, we've got Boundless Force Throw with Starkiller. This one is situational for two reasons. Number one, it is gated behind him being unleashed, so while unleashed. But the other part of this is the biggest thing being the buff immunity, healing immunity can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted. And so the big thing there that you've got to recognize, the big thing there that you want to keep in mind is, one, can the team, can healing immunity impact the team? But a lot of those fights, this is not playing a massive role comparative to some of the other abilities in his kit. Where I find this one to be extremely helpful is when you're dealing with, say, Barris right now. You're dealing with Cal Jr. or even JTR. This ability can't be evaded. So now JTR, Cal Kestis, even Ezra Bridger Exile, all of them have dodge mechanics. This will allow you to hit them and then apply them with healing immunity for 2 turns that they can't dispel. So now you have a chance of actually killing them with Starkiller. So it is an important Omicron, but again, certain teams, it's not playing a role. Same thing with Balin. I think, did I actually have this on another one? Did I have this somewhere else? I feel like I had this on another page. Maybe I accidentally, did I put this on the wrong page? Nope. Did I? I thought I had this on another page. Maybe I didn't. Okay, so it's right here. Great Toon, situational use. My bad, guys. Sorry. It's a lot of Omicrons to deal with here. So I thought I had this on another page. I would have swore I had this on another page. Right? Or am I just an idiot? And sorry, guys. It's been a minute for me. Yeah. So the situational use here. Yeah. Okay. We're fine. Whatever. The thing I said with this is that enemies who resist stun from this ability lose 100% turn meter instead, which can't be evaded or resisted. Well, what if you're going up against, say, Jedi Master Kenobi, where they can't have their turn meter, there's no turn meter reduction or manipulation, right? Or you can't have turn meter reduced on some teams. So, okay, now I resisted the stun, and they can't have their turn meter reduced anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now, there's other parts to this ability, but those are the two biggest, the stun and the turn meter. I personally believe that this should say, if this said, hey, you enemies cannot, this stun can't be resisted. That should be, I think if it said that, and the other side of it saying, if enemies can't be stunned, fear them or fracture them or, something for a turn, right? Do something to make this just a little bit better, right? That's just, again, just my personal opinion on that one. So that's why I kind of have it situational use that, like, if somebody can't be stunned and they can't have their turn meter reduced, well, then it doesn't friggin' matter, right? It's not, you're just getting the armor shred, which is nice, and, extra speed, which is great, but the biggest part is the initial turn meter removal and stun. I've got Big Boomas by Jar Jar here next. Again, if the team doesn't have protection up or bonus protection, not that this can't be good, but it's not going to the level of like, oh my gosh, I absolutely need this. listen, good ability, just not to the degree that I think it's as necessary as maybe some of these other ones. I think in some situations, this is a far better Omicron, and others you wouldn't even notice if you didn't have it, right? Just my humble opinion. Next, we have the foundational. These are your, all right, we're starting to cook here, right? We're starting to cook here. These are your, all right, you kind of need these. We have Jocasta News Jedi Archivist here, and the biggest thing, she's gaining 100% counter chance, immune to ability block. Whenever a Vanguard uses an ability, reduce the cooldown of it does not exist by 1. When she is stunned, gain deflective ward, which can't be dispelled until she receives damaged. I love this one. The 100% counter chance is ridiculous, right? Because especially when she gets her rifle, she can start hitting like a truck, right? So now any team with AoE abilities are getting punished by Jocasta. And then again, being able to reduce it does not exist. That's really good. We've got Jar Jar's unique here, Mui Mui I Love You, gaining extra stacks of plasma shielding on the shield generator, giving out Gungans. Damage immunity is huge. Whenever they gain a bonus turn, they gain 5% mastery. That bonus turn, do not sleep on the mastery gain here. Do not sleep on mastery gain on Gungans. That's a big deal. We've got Die Welt by Malicos. The biggest thing here, as much as we love the buff immunity and healing immunity, if the out in the leader slot is a dark side or light side galactic legend, or unaligned force user, not galactic legend, Malicos gains 20% critical damage and offense stacking until the end of battle. So the more times that he gets to use this, the more that he's able to increase his offense and critical damage, which is crucial to beating Ray teams, crucial to beating some of the other stuff that he takes on. Force Repulse from Starkiller. This one I think people at times sleep on. The big reason I like this, it's dispelling all buffs, and the attack deals more damage for each buff dispelled. In Grand Arena, it's saying dispel buffs on all enemies. So now this goes from 1 character to a maximum of, say, 5. Well, when he's unleashed, he deals 25% more damage for each buff dispelled. So you're going and you can be increasing your damage from this ability to ridiculous levels because you're dispelling buffs on the entire team rather than a singular character. I have deleted like all the sides on a Ray team with this because of how many buffs that they have had. Got Korriban's Legacy for Malgus. This is spreading the doubt around. Again, very important to spread that doubt around in certain fights. Other times, again, you're like, all right, you know, listen, it's up there. It's one of the better ones. It's not his best Omicron in my opinion, but it's definitely one that you want to be having as soon as you can get it. Seer Junda, this is going to go hand in hand with Malicos's with Malicos's Omicrons. Even without Malicos, this is still one that I can see a lot of value in. You're giving additional max health and protection, immune to ability block. I don't know how else to describe how good this can be until you really would see it in action without Malicos and you realize, wow, that's actually a pretty good Omicron, especially with like Fulcrum Ahsoka Tano, who's a GL rec now. Put Baby Cal in here, and you've even got like timeout situations because you just can't deal enough damage to them. This is a very good Omicron, particularly when combined with Malicos. I am Queen Amidala. This is the AoE. Now you're already dispelling buffs, but here you're giving out additional stacks of heal over time, protection over time. The other thing here that I love is if there's an active handmaiden, they can't be evaded, but it's increasing cooldowns by 1. The amount of teams that this can completely dismantle by, hey, I've increased your cooldowns, to give her an opportunity to get a handmaiden back up if you kill it. This is a terrible one to deal with at times. This is just terrible to deal with. Dream with Ghost, this is Luthen's unique ability. This is giving out Maxtree, max health, additional speed, and then the first time the Rebel Commander's defeated, summon a Rebel Trooper and promote them to Commander. So you're bringing back that summon Trooper the first time automatically without having to spend an ability, without having to take a turn. So those right there are your foundational Omicrons. Then we've got Performance Enhancing. These, again, are going to allow them to compete with certain galactic legends. I've got Bo-Katan, Mandalore's unique here. Bo-Katan is immune to Daze. If all allies are light side Mandalorian, she ignores taunt effects. Whenever an ally is defeated for the first time, she gains 20% of their max health and offense stacking until the end of battle. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. You're kind of almost punished for leaving her last, and I can tell you in certain fights that she has won for me going up against a solo, say, Lord Vader, because of how much offense and max health she has stacked from everybody dying. Next, we have Darth Malgus' Legacy of Power. There's mastery, speed, crit avoidance here, reduction of damage. Whenever they're inflicted with a debuff, they recover health and protection. While an enemy is inflicted with doubt, they have less speed, tenacity, and critical damage. Hold on, I'm not done with one of the craziest things here. If all allies are Sith, he gains an additional 50% max health and protection and 60 speed. At the start of battle, Darth Malgus recovers 100% health and protection. The biggest reason I like this one is because when you drop on Malgus, you could try to whittle him down. Guess what? He's coming back with 100% health and protection, which is just crazy. You're getting an additional 90 speed here if you've got a full team of Sith. It's a problem. This is going to get a lot of hate with people, but I've got Starkiller's unique here under performance enhancing. The problem with this one is that it's completely reliant on using Starkiller within the bounds of his unique ability, which in 3v3 is a lot easier, but in 5v5, having to have a Sith, Jedi, light side, and dark side unaligned force user as his exact allies is not always ideal, particularly within the current climate of the game. And so a lot of times this Omicron, especially in the latter stages at K1, is not actually active because we're using him with other unaligned force users. Still a very good Omicron, still one that will carry you for large portions of the game, but it's definitely, I think, a tier below the ones that you can't live without. We've got Echoes of the Fallen Order here on Malicos. What's so important here is enemies defeated by allies can't be revived. He already has in his other ability that when he defeats people, they can't be revived, but now that goes to all allies. The first time another dark side online force user would be reduced to 1 health. If Malicos is active, they recover 100% health and protection, gain damage immunity, and take a bonus turn, gain critical chance up, critical damage up, offense up. He's gaining extra stacks of Edge of Madness, but yeah, he's got like a savior built into his kit, which is really, really important, especially when going up against Rey. You know, she's going to come in with one of those sudden whirlwinds, going to come in with an ultimate. You're getting, you know, almost a reprieve from that with that, you know, with this ability right here with that Omicron. Finally, the can't live without. Sorry for the long video, but there's a lot here. We've got Reva. This is the death mark. Again, so incredibly important. That death mark is what makes this team tick. It's what allows it to compete with Galactic Legend teams. What allows it to really shred some of those other squads that come at it in Grand Arena is the fact that they're just going to get it inflicted with death mark, and then you're able to just you know, ruin them. Next, we have Balin, and this is such a long kit, but the big part you need to pay attention to here is there's kind of like 2 parts. Defeated enemies can't be revived. Mercenary allies can't be instantly defeated. If there's a non-Galactic Legend Ahsoka enemy, mercenary allies ignore protection and are immune to critical hits and healing immunity, and they expose all enemies and inflict them with healing immunity for 1 turn, which can't be evaded or resisted at the start of each of their turns. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Whenever he taunts, he's inflicting enemies with doubt. But here's, I think, the one that I also like is that this is not only stopping Jedi Master Kenobi and Commander Tano, but even Ahsoka Tano Fulcrum in a Leia team or a Galactic Legend Ahsoka team. When Fulcrum had her data crown, you remember, Balin was a really good counter to that. But the other one here is when an enemy gains Inspire, reduce all enemies' evasion by 50% stacking until the end of the encounter, and all mercenary allies gain 80 defense stacking and 50% bonus protection stacking until the end of the encounter. So this can even help him defeat Rey, because you think Jedi Knight, you know, Jedi training Rey, Cal Kestis, Ezra Bridger Exile are in those teams that if they're gaining that Inspire, you're reducing their evasion by 50%, which is just, that's a monstrous number. And then again, you're gaining defense and bonus protection. So the defense isn't as helpful against her ultimate or sudden whirlwind, but against Ben Solo, against Ezra and some of those abilities, this will be a huge deal when going up against them, will allow you to hang around longer. We've got Way of the Mandalore with Bo-Katan here. She's giving out Mastery, Max Health, and Speed. Tank allies taunt for 2 turns at the start of battle. The first time a light side Mandalorian ally is defeated each battle is revived and recovers health and protection. That is so important. So this can allow you to go up against a team like Jedi Master Kenobi. You could even go up against Lord Vader. Someone gets deleted, as long as they don't have Order of 66 now, they can come back. Remember, Bo-Katan and her other abilities gaining health, and offense stacking from that as well. We've got Strength is Power here with Malicos. At the start of battle, he's gaining a stack of Edge of Madness. All unaligned Force users gain critical hit immunity for 2 turns. He has 100% max health and 50% mastery. Whenever he uses an ability during his turn, he immediately uses Dark Strike, which is his basic. Whenever he attacks out of turn, he gains protection up. Whenever another unaligned Force user ally uses a special, he assists. This is the one that makes him tick. This is the Omicron that really makes Malicos into what you see, where he's constantly assisting. This is the big one, right? This is the big one. Obviously, the other ones are both very good. Do not get me wrong, but this is the big one. We have Loyal Bodyguard here with Queen Amidala. All allies gain 25% critical damage, 40% mastery, and are immune to fear and healing immunity, which is just ridiculous. Whenever allies inflicted with a stack of damage over time, they dispel it, and all allies gain a stack of healing over time and protection over time for 2 turns. At the start of each encounter, summon a Handmaiden decoy. Whenever an ally decoy is critically hit, all enemies are inflicted with potency down, tenacity down for 2 turns, which can't be evaded. Guys, that's the list. This is the official FatFill Omicron list for Galactic Legend and Legendary characters. And I think Legendary and Conquest characters. And I think each of these is pretty accurate to the purpose it serves in Grand Arena. Again, we're looking at this from the perspective of, if I had to restart all of my Omicrons, what order am I going in? And I feel like this is the order that I would follow. Obviously, again, bearing that I have all the characters to use with them, this is probably the order that I would follow, just because I think it's important to have some layer of a tier that kind of explains why. So I hope this helps. I hope this gives you perspective on how to equip your Omicrons. Again, this is shared down below. Let me know if you want kind of a summary video at the end, or I'll try to see what I can do about an infographic for you guys. I'm very curious. So just let me know what you guys think. I'm going to move the fat face over at the end here. And if you stayed for the fat fill face move, let me know. Love you guys. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.